Hey Grandpa, I'm not able to understand the history lessons. Do you have some trick?
Yes, dear. It's concept candy. Go check it out.
Okay, Grandpa. Thank you.
Guys, this is Omeishh. So today we are going to start off with History Chapter 1, 6th class Ncert textbook. So the first chapter title is What, Where, How and When. Okay, starting the lesson. What can we know about the past? What can we know about the past? There are several things we can find out. What people ate, what kinds of clothes they wore, the houses they lived in, and many things. We can find about the living of the hunters, herders, farmers, rulers, merchants, priests, craftsmen, artists, musicians, and scientists. We can also find about the games children played, stories they heard, the plays they saw, and the songs they sing. So these are the things which we can know about the past. Now, where did the people live? Right? People have lived along the banks of rivers for several 100,000 years ago. Years. Some of the earliest people who lived here were skilled gatherers. That is, the people who gathered their food. Okay, what are they known as? Skilled gatherers. They knew about the vast wealth of plants in the surrounding forest and collected fruits, and other forest produce for their food. They also hunted animals. What all did the skilled gatherers do? They collected roots, they collected fruits, forest produce for their food, and also hunted animals. Where did these skilled gatherers live? They lived in the banks of this river, Narmada River. Now, some of the areas where women and men first began to grow crops such as wheat and barley about 8,000 years ago. What were the first crops to be grown? Wheat and barley, right? People also began rearing animals. The first animals to be reared are goat, sheep, and cattle. This is the map about a physical map of the subcontinent. These are all the rivers like Mahanadi, etc. The first place to grow rice was in the north of Vindhyas. Okay, the places where rice was first grown are to be the north of Vindhyas. Okay. Now, but 4,700 years ago, some of the earliest cities flourished in the banks of rivers. Later, about 2,500 years ago, cities developed on banks of the river Ganga and its tributaries and along the sea coast. About 2,500 years ago, the cities dwelled near the Ganga and its tributaries and also along the sea coast. In ancient times, the area along these rivers to the south of Ganga are known as Magadha. Right? The south of Ganga are known as Magadha. Now lying in the state of Bihar. Where is Magadha now? In Bihar. Its rulers were very powerful and set up a large kingdom. Kingdoms were set up in other parts of the country as well. Throughout, people traveled from one place to another of the subcontinent to another. The hills and high mountains, including Himalayas, deserts, rivers, and seas, made journeys dangerous at times. Many people roamed from place to place, cities to cities, countries to countries, and the journeys of them were really dangerous. Why? Because of Himalayas, deserts, rivers, and seas, but never impossible. These people always tried, right? But they never thought it as impossible. So men, women moved in search of livelihood, as also to escape from natural disasters like floods and droughts. Sometimes men marched in armies, conquering others' lands. Besides, merchants traveled with caravans or ships, carrying valuable goods from place to place. All religious teachers walked from village to village, town to town, stopping to offer instructions and advice on the way. Finally, some people perhaps traveled driven by a spirit of adventure, wanting to discover new things and exciting places. What we have learned in this para is many people did lots of things. Many people traveled so that they should escape from natural disasters like floods and droughts. Many people marched to armies conquering others' lands. Many merchants traveled in caravans and ships carrying valuable goods from place to place. Many religious teachers traveled here and there, stopping instructions and advice, giving people advice. And many people took it as an adventure of moving here and there. Why do people travel nowadays? Right? Why do people travel nowadays? The answer to this is we love traveling. People from across the frontiers also come into the subcontinent and settle here. Why do we travel? To see the nature, to enjoy the nature, right? These moments of people enriched our cultural traditions. People have shared new ways of carving stone, composing music, and even cooking food over 100 years ago. Right? Names of the land. Two of the word we have used often to use our country are India and Bharat. These are the two names which we call our country as. The word India comes from Indus, right? Where does the word India come from? It comes from the word Indus, called Sindhu in Sanskrit. It's a river, right? The Iranis and the Greeks who came through the northwest about 2500 years ago and were familiar with Indus, called it Hindos or Indos, and the land to the east also the river called Indus. What this says is many Greeks and Iranis came here almost 2500 years ago and they called our place as Indos and Indos because there's Indus river located here. Then our name was kept as India. Okay. Yeah. Now, the name Bharata was used for a group of people who lived in northwest and who mentioned in the Rig Veda. Right? The earliest composition of Sanskrit dated to 3500 years ago. Later, it was used for the country. Right? Finding out about the past. There are several ways of finding out about the past. One is to search or read books. One is to search and read books that were written long ago. These are called manuscripts. What are they? Manuscripts. What are manuscripts? Manuscripts are handwritten books. They are written hundreds of years ago. Because they were written by hand, the manuscript word comes from a Latin word manu, meaning hand. Okay, script means writings, hand writings. These were usually written on palm leaf or especially on prepared bark of a tree called birch. Okay, they were either written on palm leaf or on the special bark called birch, which grows in Himalayas. This tree only grows in Himalayas. This is an example of a manuscript. Over these years, many manuscripts were eaten away by insects. Some were destroyed, but many have survived. What was the problem with these manuscripts? As they were of palm leaf or bark, many insects ate them, some were destroyed, but only some survived. Often preserved in temples. These were preserved in temples and monasteries. These books dealt with all kinds of subjects religious beliefs, practices, the lives of kings, medicine, and science. What did manuscripts contain? the religious beliefs and practices, the lives of kings, medicine, and science. Beside, there were epics, poems, and plays. What are epics? Some stories. Poems, as you all know, plays. Okay, many of these were written in Sanskrit. Others were in Prakrit, languages used by ordinary people. At that time, there were two languages, which are Sanskrit and Prakrit. Sanskrit are the languages which were used by kings, priests, and all the high level people. But the ordinary people use Prakrit as their language, and manuscripts were written in Sanskrit, Prakrit, and even Tamil. Okay. You can also study inscriptions. What are inscriptions? Writings on some objects like stones, pillars, etc. These are writings on relatively hard surfaces such as stones or metals. Sometimes kings got their orders inscribed or so that the people could see, read, and obey them. Now, at this present day, we have boards, signboards, right? At that time, kings wanted their orders to be written or inscribed on rocks and pillars so that the people could read, obey, and read it, obey it. Okay, these are the reasons. Yeah, moving down. Many times, kings also had inscriptions where what did they have? For example, kings often kept records of their victories of battle. Kings loved to keep inscriptions of their victories in the battles. There were many other things that were made and used in the past. Those who study these objects are called archaeologists. What are the people who study about the past are called? Archaeologists. They study the remains of the buildings made of stone and brick, paintings and sculptures. They also explore and excavate, dig under the surface of the earth to find tools, weapons, pots, pans, ornaments, and coins of the old times. Some of these objects may be made of stone, others of bone, baked clay, or metal. Objects that are made of hard, impressible, and imperishable substances are usually survived for long. Archaeologists also took for bones of animals, birds, and fish to find out what people ate in past. Plant remains survive far more rarely. If seeds of grain and pieces of wood have been burnt, they survive in charred form. Historians, that is, scholars who studied the past, often use the word source to refer to the information found from manuscripts. What do what do these historians call? Yeah, that's true. Historians, that is scholars, who study the past, you often use the word source to refer the information found from manuscript, right? They'll use the word source to refer the information which is written in the manuscripts. Once sources are found, learning about the past becomes an adventure. As we reconstruct it bit by bit, so historians and archaeologists are like detectives who use all the sources like clues to find out about our past. One past or many. The next subtitle comes, which is one past or many. Yeah. Now, the lives of herders and farmers were different from those of kings and queens. The lives of merchants were different from those of craftsmen, and so on. This says that different people live their lives differently, right? Also, as it is true even today, right? Here. Today, most people living in Andaman Islands get their food sourced by fishing, hunting, and collecting forest produce. By contrast, many people living in cities depend on others for food supplies. Differences such as these existed in past as well. Right? Now, besides, there is another kind of difference. We know a great deal about kings and their battles they fought because they kept records of their victories. Generally, ordinary people such as hunters, fishing folk, gatherers, farmers, or herders did not keep records of what they did. While archaeology helps us to find out about their lives, there is much that remains unknown. Here, the difference is the kings used to write or inscribe their victories in the battles, but no ordinary people like fishing folk, farmers, gatherers, herders did not keep any records of what they did. What do dates mean? These years are counted from the date generally assigned to the birth of Jesus Christ, the founder of Christianity. So 2000 means 2000 years after the birth of Christ. All dates before the birth of Christ are counted backwards and usually have the letters BC. Christ, before Christ. BC, you have many times, or you have seen it a lot of times, like BC, 2006, 506 BC, 500 BC, like this. Okay. Now, these are the signs or the letters used at that time. Like P was written in a square. This is a bit important. With this, we complete our lesson. If you have some doubts, please comment in the comment section below. If you like the video, please like it, share it, and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Have a nice day.